small village of Pluckley, nestled in the rolling hills of Kent, England, was known as the most haunted village in England. Ghost stories and legends were a part of the village's history, and many visitors came to Pluckley hoping to experience the supernatural for themselves. But the villagers knew that some of the stories were not just legends, but true horror stories that had happened in their village. The old manor house on the outskirts of Pluckley was one of the most infamous haunted spots in the village. The legend went that a wealthy lord had lived there with his beautiful wife, but she had been unfaithful to him with a handsome young servant. The lord had caught them in the act and had killed them both in a fit of rage before taking his own life. Years later, a family moved into the manor house, determined to make it their home. They had heard the stories, but they didn't believe in ghosts. They soon discovered that the legends were all too real. It started with strange noises in the night, footsteps on the stairs, and doors opening and closing on their own. But then the family began to see the ghosts. The first ghost they saw was the Lord himself. His face twisted in anger and pain. He appeared in the family's bedroom in the dead of night, looming over their bed and staring down at them with his cold, dead eyes. The family screamed in terror and fled the house, never to return. Years passed, and the manor house remained empty, a dark, forbidding presence on the edge of the village. But one summer, a group of teenagers from the village decided to explore the old manor house. They thought it would be fun to spend the night there, telling ghost stories and daring each other to go into the haunted rooms. They found a way inside the house and made their way to the grand ballroom, the largest room in the house. It was said that this was where the Lord had killed his wife and her lover. The teenagers sat on the floor, their backs against the cold stone walls, and began to tell each other stories of ghosts and demons. But then they heard a sound, a low, mournful moan that seemed to come from nowhere. They looked around, but they could see nothing. The sound grew louder, and suddenly the room was filled with a cold, icy wind that chilled them to the bone. And then they saw her, the lady in white. She appeared in the center of the room, her pale form glowing in the darkness. She was beautiful, with long, flowing hair and a white gown that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. But her face was twisted in agony, and she looked as though she was in terrible pain. The teenagers screamed and ran for the door, but it was locked tight. They pounded on the door, begging to be let out, but it wouldn't budge. And then they heard the sound of footsteps, coming closer and closer. The Lord. He appeared before them, his face contorted in anger and hatred. He was holding a bloody sword, and his eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. The teenagers tried to run, but they were trapped, and the ghosts seemed to be closing in on them. Just as they thought they were done for, the ghosts disappeared, leaving the teenagers alone in the darkness. They finally managed to escape the manor house, their hearts pounding with fear and their minds filled with the horror they had just witnessed. The villagers of Pluckley knew that the ghosts were still there, waiting for anyone foolish enough to disturb them. They warned visitors to stay away from the old manor house and to avoid the village after dark. But there were always those who didn't listen.